Hi, my name is Valerie, a bridal gown designer and entrepreneur, and welcome to my channel, Behind the Seams. So the festivities are around the corner, and one thing that festivities are usually associated with is story time. So I thought it would be nice to kick off the first episode with my story and how I ended up in fashion. So one thing I remember growing up, I really enjoyed arts and crafts. Ask me why, I'm not so sure. But I do remember asking for coloring pencils, asking for a drawing pad when I was younger, and just trying out different arts and crafts things, even books. Sometimes when we used to be taken out to, there used to be a program called, I cannot remember. But what would happen is they would take a bunch of us students, young kids, take us to a library where we could actually borrow different books, or actually you could buy books. I think the idea was kind of to inculcate a reading culture. So for me, I remember taking a lot of DIY kind of books that, had to do with crafts, trying to make your room look really nice and fancy. And just things that were kind of artsy. So I think art was kind of inculcated in me from a very young age. But then also now, as of course life progresses and you're starting primary school and then you go to secondary school, you always ask, so what did you actually want to be when you grow up? So for me, it started off as a scientist. To be fair, right now I really enjoy sci-fis. I think somewhere in me, deep down inside, I would have been a scientist in another lifetime. But I wanted to become a scientist, and then that later evolved into becoming a doctor. And why I changed from being a scientist to a doctor was because I think there was an airspace crash that happened around that time. So for me, I was like, am I trying to kill myself going to space? I don't think so. But even with that, even with as much as I changed my perspective in terms of, I don't think scientist is the main thing, I still enjoyed the sciences. Even in high school, I actually took all sciences: biology, chemistry, and physics. Fast forward to high school, during one of my biology classes, we were doing dissection. I think that was the title. That was the topic. So we're dissecting a rabbit. Yeah, that was really hard for me. I don't even think I touched that rabbit. I just was like, you know what, you guys just do it. I will learn the body parts from seeing what you guys have, cut open. So I think that's the point where I decided I don't really think I want to be a doctor. And then more so knowing that I was going to be in school for probably 6-7 years, just studying before I even start thinking about becoming a doctor. So that changed, but it changed slowly over time. Obviously, you're encountering different subjects, you're talking to different people, and you start now doing the math and the calculation. You're like, I don't think this is something that I really want to get into. One day, I actually saw a friend of mine who was sketching saris because she was Indian. And I was super fascinated. Like, she really had really good sketches. She used to do art as a subject. And for me, that started getting my wheels thinking in terms of, okay, for me to just trying it out, like, can I try it out for the sake of trying it out? Can it work? So I took a pen and paper, started sketching. I think I will try and look for some of those old sketches if I can find them, and then just show you where we started. I think I kept some of them, And from there, I think I started getting an interest in clothing and the idea of coming up with something from scratch. But remember also, I still used to be interested in art. So whatever kind of art form that would look like. I used to draw. I used to enjoy drawing landscapes. And so that actually changed eventually to now drawing dresses. So immediately after high school, usually in the Kenyan context, a lot of people, once they've cleared high school, there's normally like either they take a gap year or they immediately go to computer colleges to just learn computer packages, or you can take a French course. I think that's what people were doing back in the day. I don't know what guys are doing now, but that's what we were doing back in the day. So for me, I decided to take a computer course, which used to happen in town, like CBD town. So what would happen in the mornings, I would leave with my dad very early because we used to stay far. At that time, it was far. And I didn't know how to use public means by myself. So I'd wake up, live with him, come to his office, sit on his computer from like around 6:30, because classes used to start around 8, 6:30 to 8, just, Googling, researching what is fashion, how do I know how to, sketch, what are the types of sketches, I would try them out, and, all this kind of stuff. I would print out documents. I think at the end of it, I had like a whole, they call it a dossier of just fashion stuff, like how to start a fashion business, how to become a fashion designer, how to, anything to do with fashion. That was me at that time. So I was really consuming a lot in the meantime as I was doing my computer packages. So by then, obviously, it was already solidified that this is what I want to do. At the back of my head, I knew I want to run my own business. I want to run my own empire, because that was a dream that was sold to all of us. I want to be I want to be, somebody, a boss lady, having multiple businesses. So I had so many interests. I was like, I think I want to do events. At that time, I was like, this was like somewhere in high school. I think I can be an event planner. I think I can be a doctor who's a designer, fashion designer, But I always knew I was going to do my own business at some point. Now, by the time I was finishing high school, I was too young. I'm not going to say how young, but I was young, because I don't want you guys calculating my age. But at that time, I was pretty young, and my parents felt that you're too young for us to let you go abroad for fashion. Because at that time, we felt that the best fashion schools were actually abroad. Right now, there are actually a couple of fashion schools where you can go and, learn a thing or two. But back then, we really didn't have a lot of options. So what my parents advised me was go to uni, go and get a basic degree, at least even in business, because that will help you even when you're trying to run your own thing. It made sense, because I was going to be an entrepreneur. I was going to run my own thing. So, and then also at that time, Donald Trump and his apprentice the Apprentice show had actually come out. So I was super like, woo, I'm gonna be that chick, So all these things sort of conglomerated, because I was like, yeah, I have an interest in all of them, but I was trying to see how to fix design as well as business and all that stuff. So went to business school, USIU, graduated in 2012. And in between, even in uni, I participated in a few pageants. And so for me, that was like my opportunity to start spreading my wings when it came to being a designer. So I always used to do a lot of things here and there, sketching for so-and-so. I didn't know the business of fashion at that time, but I used to do a lot of things here and there. I did an outfit for a bridal party for one of our friends back in the day. And I was like, yeah, okay, I guess this does make sense. And then you grow up and you realize you really can't do everything and you can't be everything. So I had to choose which path I wanted to take. So I knew for certain that what I would do is that with this, at least this degree, what I can do is try and work for a certain number of years, maybe 3 to 4 years or 3 to 5 years. And then from there, I can now take the leap and now get into business. So I can just understand the ropes of what it takes to run an organization and run a business. So I did a stint, 3 years, worked for a security company as a management trainee. Somewhere in between, I started getting quote unquote a bit bored, because I was like, is this what life is all about? You wake up, go to work Monday to Friday. Saturday, you're looking forward because you want to sleep. Sunday, you're going to church. Repeat. January, February, March, April, May. The only thing you're excited about is your leave. And then during your leave, you don't want to do anything. So I started now thinking about, okay, so what does it take to actually be an entrepreneur and to run your own business? Now, there's a theory and then there's a practical. So after 3 years, I left the security company and I enrolled in fashion school. So there was a fashion school locally. The option was to go abroad. But then I'm like, I've worked for 3 years. I've earned my own money. I don't think I want to spend another 3-4 years in university learning something. Okay, so the idea was just to get the basic technicalities of what it takes to be a fashion designer and to actually construct a garment, because that was the reason why I went to fashion school mainly. So the plan was I left employment, and at least I'm grateful for my parents because they actually supported me in the sense that they told me, if this is what you want to do, why don't you start putting plans towards that? So what does that look like? Save up. Don't take the leap right now, leaving employment. Save up for like about a year for what exactly you need. You know how much school fees you need. You know how much upkeep you need. Okay, so we can decide: are you going to take care of your upkeep, or are you going to pay for the fees? So for me, I was like, let me take care of my upkeep. You sort out my fees. So I saved. And then in 2016, I took the leap and went to fashion school. One reason why I did that was because I mentioned before that I used to do different jobs. Like I used to take different projects here and there. And the thing was, I used to work with tailors. Now, the challenge was I was not able to communicate my vision and my ideas to the tailors because there was the technical know-how, and then there's just the design aspect of it. So that is the reason now I said, you know what, I think I need to understand what exactly I'm trying to communicate for me to be able to work with these tailors, because they can take you round and round and round and round in circles. And that's what happened to me. So in 2017, I enrolled in fashion school along Gong Road. It was exciting time. Honestly, for me, I was like, yeah, this is what I've always wanted to do. This is just the goal, the dream, and then also at that time I took up photography to kind of compensate in terms of finding another source of income that was more flexible but could help me even at least gain a bit of upkeep left, right, and center. So that's how I entered into photography for a short stint, and that's how I have a bit of insight in that space. Oh yes, I shot weddings. So me being in the wedding space, it's not something I started the other day. So I've taken, I did, I think 2-3 weddings myself. Very exhausting, but also very fulfilling moments in my lifetime. So went to fashion school for 1 year, finished in 2017, and then now the reality started, checking in. You realize fashion is nothing to do with glamour. It has everything to do with work. It's like 90% work and 5% glamour. Actually, let's say 95%. The work is, intense. They mentioned it in my research back in the day when I was looking at what it takes to be a fashion designer. Yeah, they mentioned it's high pressure, it's exhausting, it's, but there's one thing to read it, there's another thing to experience it. And so I experienced at least a dry spell, because now I had to figure out, so what am I doing? Nobody knows me in this space. The Kenyan fashion space, I think that's a topic for another day, but the Kenyan fashion space was not developed. It still, I think, is struggling. Yes, you have designers, but it's just disjointed. Anyway, that's a story for another day. So, I didn't know where to start. I really didn't know where to start and what to do. So what I took a leaf from some of the international designers, which was, I think it was Ralph Lauren if I'm not wrong, but I need to confirm, where they decided to start just selling ties. You just pick one item, make it in mass, sell it, and then you keep growing your product line and product range as you go on. So that was my strategy, and that's how I started with capes, because I was like, I like the idea of like a cloak or like a jacket, but it's not really a jacket, and it has some semblance of royalty. So for me, I felt like, okay, I think this is something we can try and do. So I made a couple of capes, sold a couple. Even today, actually, I still get asked about some of those capes. I think I will get back to them at some point, but for now, I took a break on that. So with time, obviously, I did different things. Of course, did the capes, did African wear, which is very common, very typical. And I think for me, I was like, can we do something that's different from what everybody else is doing? In that trying out the different things, my cousin in 2018 reached out to me and said, you're going to make my wedding gown. And I said, what? Yeah. But I said, you know what? I like challenges. I think that's one thing about me, that I really like challenges, because I feel like from them, I actually get to grow and I break ceilings of what I think is impossible for me. So I took on the challenge and said, fine, sure, I will do the gown. Did my research. What does it take to make a gown? Obviously, nobody in this Nairobi was going to tell me how to do that. There's not a lot of information on the internet, but it was sufficient enough for me to say, okay, we're going to make our gown, first ever wedding gown in 2018. I did the gown. She loved it. I was actually pretty impressed by myself at that time. And I was like, wow, I did a gown. Oh my gosh. But there were so many issues with that dress, she still appreciates it to today. So for me, it's in my studio, it's like one of those, memorabilia photos. I took note of the mistakes and the issues that I encountered with that particular gown. And so for me, I said, you know what, I think it's something we can pick up and get to learn. So it was a learning curve. I still did a few other dresses. I had to work with the technique of pattern drafting, because I figured freehand cutting sometimes with delicate outfits do not come out the way you actually want and how you envision. So for these, I've just been practicing, trying to still make individual dresses for people, for different occasions and different situations. I even tried to do a commercial once where I dressed all the models, outsourcing the outfits. I've done a reality show, which was on Ebru TV. I don't know if it's still there, on Rate My Style, where I came second runners. The point is, I have just immersed myself in anything and everything to be able to learn my craft. And that is because I have struggled to find somebody who's willing to hold my hand and show me the ropes. And so what happens is you're just left to yourself and the internet and to figure it out. I think the closest of anybody holding my hand has been my teachers from fashion school. So them, even to date, some of them I still keep in touch, and to ask them questions like, I don't understand what's wrong with the construction of this outfit. So one thing that I can say has really helped me grow. Oh, okay. Before we go there, I made the leap to move into bridal fully in 2022, 2021, in 2021 in December, when I was coming back from the holidays, I said, you know what, I think I'm gonna stick to bridal, full stop, 100%. So by the time January was starting, I had already changed the page name. I think I did a rebranding of the page, rebranding of the name and just the brand. And we started, and I said, you know what, I'm going to go full force bridal gown design mode. Reasons being, as a designer, I feel like I have more room to play with in terms of design. And then also they're like one-off, so you really can pour your heart out into each gown, into each garment. And then another thing also I really appreciated or enjoyed was the journey that I was taking with each bride that I did their gowns, because after 2018 I did other gowns, sporadically, so it wasn't like a consistent thing. But eventually 2020 is when I was like, you know what, this is what we're doing full time. I got a space, moved out of home, stopped teaching from home, because also now if you're trying to create a personal experience, for me, I was like, I need a place outside my own, comfort zone, or rather my own space. And that's how we started. It has been a journey and a half. Some of the things that I have learned along this journey is, number one, consistency. I think if I gave up, because I know one thing I did mention is that when I discovered that doing design is actually a lot of work, at some point I was like, is it really worth it? I think it's easier just to get a desk job, go to work, you don't need to think about everything, and come back. But I have learned, number one, consistency in growing your craft. And this was actually inspired by a trip I made to the US one time. And in that trip, I visited a Gucci store and other designer stores. I looked at the garments and how they've been constructed. Previous to that, I used to tell people, do not call me a tailor, please. Calling a designer tailor is almost like an insult. So for me, I always felt like calling me a tailor was really diminishing my actual job and actually what I do. So, but when I visited the US and I realized I am nowhere close to what they call a designer, I came back home put my tail between my legs and I said, you know what, call me Taylor. So I decided I'm going to be the best tailor Nairobi has ever seen, ever experienced. And what that did for me, it actually catapulted me into understanding my craft to the T and making sure that everything that I do actually looks like a designer's work. Okay, so for me, I said, and I think I need to earn that title designer and not just blast it on myself, as many people in our industry and in this country actually do. So consistency in growing your craft. The other thing that I've learned in my journey is that you need to know what happens on the ground. And this is not even just for fashion designers, but it's something I also learned when I was working in corporate. You have people in the high rankings, at the top management, top executive. They have no idea what's happening at the bottom. So you have a situation where you're making decisions and you're making noise at people on the ground, yet whatever you're requesting or expecting of them to do at the ground is nearly impractical or not even possible. So for example, if I want a tailor to create a certain or to stitch in a certain way, and I don't know how that certain way is done, how am I going to communicate the same and what I want to actually the people at the front line? So know your stuff. For me, I had to go to fashion school to actually know the technicalities of garment construction so that I know how to communicate what I want and what I need in a garment. The other thing I've come to really learn, and one of my biggest lessons, is understanding the business side of it. And here's where I am really passionate about, because I've noticed a lot of creatives are just creatives, but they don't know how to run businesses. And that's why you will find many creatives usually start out, stardom, they're like famous and everything. But if you think about it 10, 15, 20 years down the line, there's nothing, there's no continuation, there's no legacy building. I always used to ask myself, how come the Valentinos, how come Carolina Herrera, those are like the OG designers for back in the day. How come the Alexander McQueens, like their names live on for hundreds and hundreds of years? There's the aspect of the business, understanding the business of fashion, because business is business, regardless of what it is you're doing. You're in business to make a profit, okay? And then the other thing is that they actually have systems in internationally, they're actually systems to support creative businesses to grow. And those systems are linked to the business side of it. What does that mean? You need to know your finances. You need to know your taxes. You need to understand supply and demand. You need to understand production and your time. You need to understand customer service in order for your business to thrive, whether it's big or it's small. Okay, that is something that for me I've been very passionate about, and I'm like, creatives, we can do this. I know it's the worst, because the suggestion is, if you can't run the business, bring somebody on board to support you in running of the business while you run the creative side of the business. So basically, that is my story of how I got to where I did. It's really been summarized in a way that you can be able to pick something, learn a thing or two. And just to encourage you that we've all started from somewhere. I usually look at some of the big headliners and I always ask myself, oh gosh, how did they get there? But it takes time. Oh, that's the other lesson. Time. You cannot outgrow time. I think that's what I'm trying to say. What that means is, the only way I've become good at what I do and where I'm at right now is because I put in the time into my craft and into my practice to be able to understand. I put in the time to grow and to learn. So I don't think you can short circuit that process of time to get to superstardom, because people who do that end up crashing like tremendously. I'm sure you've seen and heard of celebrity designers who are renowned, and I'm not even talking about like outside the country, within our country, within our context. So I will talk a lot about our Kenyan context, because I feel like we need to grow it into something that is sustainable, something that is the government can actually even start paying attention and be like, this is a sector that we need to pay attention to. So putting in the time is actually crucial. And with that, that's my story of how I got to where I am today. I have not yet reached. I don't think that you really actually reach. Constantly learning, constantly growing. And for me, my desire is that we will grow together and help our industry grow and thrive to what it actually can be. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share if you feel that this episode has been beneficial to you. And also, you can comment in the comment section. Let me hear what you think about what it is like getting into the fashion industry. What has been your experience? I'm really keen and interested in hearing your stories. So until the next episode, take care.